plan itself is all on the website, and there's a dashboard. So members can actually log into that dashboard anytime they want, so they can actually get an update on all of the projects, how far they are, the megawatts that are coming into the system, etc. But Mr. Lester will also put that in to the presentation. But that just enables members at any stage to really, from the role that you're all playing, to keep a really close watch on the plan and how it is rolling out across the province. But with that, I'm not sure, DG, if you want to say anything, and then we'll hand over to Mr. Lester.
Mr. Malida comes across as a bit frozen.
No, Chair, I'm here. No, Premier, I think maybe just one issue from our side. I mean, our energy plan has been coming on for the last 3 years. Obviously, all the work that we've also done is also taken up in our budget documentation, particularly, on the policy chapter. We are sort of aligned to our initial plan, and Alvi will talk a little bit to that detail. We've also reported, obviously, through the various committees in terms of the progress that we're making. And maybe just lastly, Chair, for members of the committees, we also work very closely, with all the municipalities, and more importantly, we're working very, very closely, with institutions like Eskom, the national department, the presidency, because obviously all of these are important, because energy is important. It's for the economy, and as I've said the last time, that job creation, growing the economy is our #1 priority. And in fact, without energy, we're not going to achieve some of our targets. So something that we're very serious about. We also have an energy council. We've expanded the energy council. It's under the chairpersonship of the Premier to now also include water, and we use the energy council to actually use it as a governance structure, where we also get Eskom and municipalities and some external people to come into that system and to actually support us with implementing all the stuff. And we're also working very closely, obviously, with the city of Cape Town. So again, Chair, Alvi is the person that we got onto our system, an ex-Eskom exec. So he knows the business. He's comes with lots of credibility. People at National knows him. He works quite closely with him, and we're quite serious in the province around us. So, Chair, I'm going to hand over straight to Alvi. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Mr. Lester.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the members for giving us this opportunity. Let me just share my screen. You must just indicate to me if you can see the screen, please.
Alvi?
Right.
Alvi, can I ask you maybe just to speak a little bit into the mic? I mean, as Member Walter said, your voice is sort of very, very, just try and speak into the mic.
Okay, no, I don't know if you can hear me any better, Chair.
That's better.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So, Chair, let me just run you through the slides. I think the first one was just really to indicate when we started the program, the drive was predominantly around load shedding and the impact it was having on both businesses and citizens in the province. Of course, we also wanted to, in some or other way, insulate the province against load shedding and try and look at alternative sources of energy. But I think from 2022 to date, there's been significant changes in the industry, and we've seen significant shifts in our policy and regulatory space in the country. We've seen the unbundling of Eskom. We've seen the creation of the National Transmission Company of South Africa, the formation of the GNU. We've seen market dynamic that has changed. We've seen traders come into the space. And obviously, we've seen a bit of pressure on the country around our emissions, etc. And that, in fact, has moved us towards saying that we're not only dealing with a load shedding issue, but we're also dealing with other network events that are taking place. And an example was in last year, we lost 7 towns in the Karoo. And this was a network failure. It was nothing to do with load shedding. But the end result was really that we had thousands of citizens that had no access to energy. And so what we've tried to do is to then try and encapsulate our objectives in the program to say it's actually around mitigating and managing energy-related disasters, of which load shedding is just one. And then the second quite important one is then to create an energy resilience strategy for the province. And we want to do this on the basis of providing secure, decarbonized affordable energy to the people of the province. I think, Chair, what we haven't changed in any way is the targets that we've set for the program. We still anticipate that we will get to 5,700 megawatts by 2035. And we have set interim targets in the plan for the province as well. It is an all of government approach. So it's not just provincial government, it's local government. And we engage significantly with national government around points of intersection, around common sort of themes that we're driving, and the learnings that we can take from both national and provincial and local government. I also want to say that we've extended this into the private sector domain as well. And I think from a governance perspective, you'll see that reflected quite well in the Energy and Water Council that now exists. So we have representation on that council of municipalities, but we also have representation from academia, and we have representation and sometimes presentation as well from the private sector as well. The program really focuses on a number of things, and this is really sort of the program directives on the left, which is disaster mitigation and management. We look at the strategic component of things. Then we've got very much the implementation activities, demand side management, looking at energy generation, procurement and trading. And then I think key to all of this is the infrastructure component for municipal networks that we have. We can't obviously in the program ignore the fact that you have got the net zero drive in the province. And to do this, you need to be able to look at what kind of investment in the sector can you actually enable. On the project itself, Chair, I think from the strategic point of view, we've put together the scope for the Western Cape Integrated Resource Plan. We've engaged with national colleagues at both the Department of Electricity and Energy. We've engaged with Eskom. We've engaged with a number of stakeholders across the spectrum. And in our phase one, we had actually completed the terms of reference. This was funded through donor funding, and it was actually done through US aid. I think we unfortunately had a setback with the Trump administration earlier in the year where they withdrew funding. But we very quickly engaged alternative funders, and I think we're happy to say that we managed to get the UK Pact to agree to fund us to the tune of about 12 million rand. So we expect that we will now be able to move into the second phase of the IRP. The UK Pact process, however, is going to take about 8 months because they select the service providers. So in fact, I want to say up front that we've tried in all our sort of donor arrangements not to take any physical money, but rather to look at them providing us with capacity and skills. I think it just makes it a lot easier for us to then deal with it. But we put our scope together, the terms of reference, and we say what it is that we want that skills to be able to do. UK Pact then goes to the market and then actually selects that skills and pays for it and makes it available to us as provincial government. In our IRP, we're going to be looking at what is the energy requirement and the investment for energy up until 2050. And it aligns fairly closely to the national IRP, but there are definitely some provincial requirements that we are looking at, given the fact that we don't have any fossil fuel plants in the Western Cape. And then obviously considerate of the fact that we do have the one single nuclear plant in the country sitting in the Western Cape. Our terms of reference is quite specific, but I would like to point out that we've created in the terms of reference for the IRP a project steering committee, and we've also allocated an expert review panel that will review the IRP for us annually. I think on the power sector reform, Chair, I think we've had a number of engagements with the City of Cape Town as the lead metro, not only in the Western Cape, but I think the lead metro in the country when it comes to energy. And we've tried really hard to work together with the city to make sure that we take in a consolidated approach and a holistic approach when it comes to some of the principles around renewable energy and what in the Cape we are looking for in terms of renewable energy. The city has issued a number of RFIs but I think the most recent one is probably the one that probably requires some, not attention, but maybe for us to highlight. And that is that they've gone to the market asking for anyone that has excess energy available, that they'd be able to sell that to the city of Cape Town. So this is not a generation project. This is really just them going to the market to say anyone that's able to produce energy at scale, of course, and is dispatchable, that the city of Cape Town would be interested in taking that energy. I think what we have seen in the market, what's happened is the issuing of the trading licenses by the regulator. We do understand that Eskom is challenging this legally, but I think what it has done, it certainly opened up the distribution industry and customers to the option and the potential to buy energy from more than one source, and particularly to be able to buy energy at different times of the day at different rates. And this is very much the sort of market that's happening across the world, where they talk about a day-ahead market and sort of even smaller windows, hours ahead market where you can purchase energy. And we start to see those things starting to happen in our sector as well. What we've started to also focus on quite a bit is having the availability and the potential to make skills available to the municipalities. And I'll touch on that further on, but transaction advisory is one of the most critical skills that we look at in the industry. It really is the sort of checkpoint before any municipality goes to the market for energy, either own generation or buying through a PPA or even through a trading system. We've engaged significantly with the Presidential Climate Change Commission. We do a lot of work with Sustainable Energy Africa. They've assisted us as well as the municipalities in the province to look at things like cost of supply studies, which is in preparation for tariff applications to the regulator. We've engaged quite a bit with the GIZ, the World Bank and SALGO on reform, but also looking at alternative blended financing models that will help municipalities in terms of getting to the market and being able to attract financiers for their projects. We've got a program that deals with demand side management, and this specifically talks to the hot water load control programs. Eskom has an allocated budget from the Department of Electricity and Energy. It runs a program for hot water load control. What we've been doing is we've initiated discussions with a number of municipalities in the Western Cape, where we have helped them with their application to Eskom to be able to fund hot water load control systems. And what this really means is that municipalities are able to then manage the amount of energy that they use over peak by being able to switch automatically, be able to switch geysers on and off. Now, this is not new. This has been in the system for years, but I do want to say that I think over the last 10 or so years, most of those systems have become redundant because they haven't been used. And what we did as part of our exercise is to evaluate the municipalities in the province that had those systems, see which of those we were able to resuscitate with the OEMs, and then get funding, donor funding for us to be able to do that. The idea here is obviously that we would then help the municipalities in the Western Cape apply for this funding via the Eskom system. We plan to support about 90 municipalities with applications to the Eskom demand side management program. I do want to say we also think that that's going to scale, because once it takes off, we've already done 6 submissions. We'd like to get it to 19 before this financial year, but I think we'll probably try and target as many of the municipalities that are willing and able in the Western Cape to do this. As part of the DSM, we also have a hospital energy efficiency program, where through our energy services companies or ESCOs, we've appointed a number of subcontractors. And what they really do is they go into the hospitals and the clinic, and they retrofit particularly lighting systems, but also then assess the HVAC systems to see if there's any potential savings by changing some of the systems, by upgrading them. And the mechanism, or how the ESCO contract works, is that the ESCO makes the capital investment. The savings that is achieved by obviously using more energy efficient components, that saving on the energy charge, that is then split between the ESCO, and the hospital or the Department of Health and Wellness. We've got a very similar approach in our School Efficiency Light project, where we again also have ESCOs involved. And the commitment from the ESCOs is they will make the capital investment, and the savings on the energy cost, they will then share in that with the school or the SGB, whomever is actually in place to manage that school. So both those programs are going very well. I must say those are quite mature programs. They happened before the resilience program started, and I think we've just included them in the process and started to look at what's the benefits of using energy efficiency as a trigger for the second phase. And so in the second phase, and I'll cover this in the slides later, we'll talk about things like our solar PV and battery systems for schools and hospitals as well. We've got the pilot renewal project that we're running in Hessequa. I do want to indicate that this has probably been one of our sort of most successful projects. I think what we've managed to do here is to show that with the right sort of approach by municipalities, with a good sort of funding mechanism available, that it is possible for municipalities and towns to be taken out of the national system and have own energy. In this case, it's Hessequa, Riversdale. It's a 12 to 18 megawatt solar installation with a battery PV system attached to it. It is being done over phases. It's 3 phases, and we expect to see first megawatts in Riversdale before the end of this year, in fact. The idea here would be that they would be able to then manage their own load. They have the resources, they have the capacity, they have the systems, in fact, in that municipality to be able to control the equipment, to manage their energy flows. And obviously, this will make a significant impact in terms of their cost of energy as well. We've got a project called the Green Economy Energy Resilience. And really what this is us supporting municipalities through a number of mechanisms. One of it is things like the small-scale embedded generation, looking at what kind of SSEG frameworks do municipalities need. How do we assist them to look at how does this impact their tariff and reviewing that? It's a mechanism. In fact, in this program, we're helping municipalities look at things like the wheeling support that they require, and also the impact that the reforms is going to have on municipalities as well. This program is very much centered around support to municipalities, and particularly around things like policy reforms, regulatory impacts, etc. We also want to say that I think last month, we've launched the first market intelligence report for the year. This was done through Green Cape. And it was really just an indicator of what is happening in the renewable space across the country, and specifically in the Western Cape. The types of projects that were taking place, the amount of investment that was going into this, and the impact that this was going to have on both the local economy at the municipal level, as well as the provincial economy. On the private sector enablement, what we've done here is we've organized a 5-day national training workshop for wheeling, particularly with the private sector. And this is really just that the private sector's come and said that, a lot of them want to start doing installations for their own businesses. Sometimes they've got excess energy. They would like to sell it to another business in that same town, and they don't quite know what the status is of municipalities, and are they willing to wheel, and what kind of bureaucracy should the private sector be expecting when they approach municipalities. So what we've done is we've actually put together a workshop that we will actually take them through to get them sort of afraid with what is available in the province, in the various municipalities. I also want to say that we are one of the main facilitators at the NECOM workstream that deals specifically with wheeling. The wheeling framework and toolkit that was developed in the Western Cape has now been adopted nationally through NECOM, and it's now being rolled out across the country to all municipalities. And then, of course, Eskom has also launched its own virtual wheeling product and platform as well. Again, from a generation perspective, one of our key projects is the project in Stellenbosch, where we're actually looking at going to the market, or we have gone to the market, in fact, for for energy. The procurement is underway. RFPs were issued. We've got the grid connection agreement in place. The bidder's response was finalized. We've had 2 clarification meetings that took place. There was a significant amount of interest for that. And then the formal Q&A document, once we're done with it, we'll review it and we'll publish it. I do want to say that we initially started with about 20 megawatts to the market for Stellenbosch. We've gone back to that and we've had a look at it again, and we've actually gone to the market for 50 megawatts for Stellenbosch. So this is a significant move for us in that it's one of the few municipalities across the country where we've actually gone to the market, a municipality that's not necessarily a metro. Earlier, I touched on the support that we offer to municipalities. What we've done is we created, under the Department of Infrastructure, we've created a project preparation facility. And really what this is, it creates the capacity, the skills, and the resources that will assist municipalities to get them to the market in the form of an RFI or an RFP. So we provide skill sets such as transaction advisors, consulting engineers, network engineers, modeling and financial modeling and financial modeling as part of the services that we offer. We've helped to take Saldanha to the market for 100 megawatts, Mossel Bay in the market for 30 megawatts. We helped, obviously, Stellenbosch to the market. We hope to take George to the market. We've assisted Swartland, and we're also engaging with Prince Albert around an off-grid solution for them. So there is a keen interest to get to the market from municipalities in the Western Cape. We've got a project that speaks to gas to power. We've taken a position paper through to Cabinet for province. I must say we're adjusting that given the national shifts for gas. The load factor for gas in the gas master plan has doubled. They have allocated to particular parts of the country, we call it gas paths. Saldanha features in the gas master plan, and there's consideration for either Kucha and or Mossel Bay also for a gas option. And I think in addition to that, we've also heard the announcement around fracking being considered in the Karoo again. So this is going to change our position on gas slightly, because in the previous gas submission, we did not include fracking as part of the gas path that we would like to see in the province. And then, Chair, I mentioned earlier that we had the energy efficiency for schools and for hospitals. We followed this with the second phase, which is the rooftop solar and battery installations for public schools. We focused predominantly on quintile 3 schools, and these are the schools that really can't afford to do things for themselves. We have been able to assist them to be able to do some of these activities. We've had significant success. I must say one of the things that we are challenged with is that having certified and qualified installers, that is a challenge. We've gone to the market probably 3 times to make sure that we have quality expertise that are actually doing the installations at the schools. We are targeting to complete 50 schools in total when our programs. In fact, when our program started, we had targeted 100 schools, but I must say we find that the number of the schools, especially ones that have got particularly strong SGBs, they don't require as much assistance from us as the ones that actually don't have that capacity. And so that's our focus has been on the quintile 3s really. And then we've taken a very similar approach for the provincial health buildings and facilities. There's a number of those that we've completed across the province. I must say we start to see the savings, the rand savings, we've started to see those come in significantly for the Department of Health. I think in the 24-25 year, there was 79 I think it was 79 kilowatt hours that was saved by going on our own solar systems. I think that translated into about a 7 million rand saving in terms of the energy cost.
Okay. Okay.
And then we've got a focus on green hydrogen, chair into the committee. We had the National Green Hydrogen Summit, which was held in Cape Town. It was hosted by the presidency. There is an MOU between the 3 Capes, Northern Cape, Western Cape, Eastern Cape. The idea here is that we would have a common approach to some of the activities required for green hydrogen. One of the things that we've asked the presidency to assist us with is to look at a feasibility study for a transmission network, particularly from the Northern Cape to the Western Cape, but focused purely on the green hydrogen opportunity that we see. Of course, everybody is aware of what's happening in the Northern Cape with their plan in terms of Boegoebaai. Our focus in the Western Cape is, of course, on the West Coast and Saldanha specifically. There's been keen interest from KfW, GIZ, World Bank around green hydrogen. I must also say that we've got 4 fairly serious private sector players in the Western Cape that are making commitments around green hydrogen, both in the form of ethanol opportunities, ammonia opportunities, bunkering fuel opportunities. And there are some that are looking at, obviously, how do we get the local economy to benefit from that, whether that is through hydrogen vehicles or through hydrogen battery storage. One of the things that we are engaging Eskom with is around the transmission development plan, and if that caters for any of the green hydrogen networks that's required going forward. Obviously, green hydrogen doesn't exist on its own purely from an energy perspective. There's also quite a big water component that's affected with green hydrogen. So you need bulk desalination. So there's lots of engagement between ourselves, local government, as well as national government around what would be the water requirements for plants of this nature. I think on the maintenance and expansion of the energy infrastructure, we've done quite a bit of work in terms of data gathering, both between ourselves, Eskom, and municipalities. We have managed to complete an exercise for the George municipality, where we've effectively been able to map out all the municipalities' networks to be able to say what piece of equipment is sitting where on that municipal network, what are the different voltage levels of that network. Should energy come into the system, which would be the point that would be able to carry it most easy, and also, of course, using that to determine what would be the infrastructure upgrade required should George, as an example, get an additional 100 megawatts into the system. Where would they be able to inject that into the system? We've done a very similar session with Witzenberg, Cederberg, Theewates, Matsikama, Cape Agulhas, really just to understand, what are some of the grid constraints that they are facing and what is the condition assessment of the equipment on their networks. And one of the things that we do for municipalities, obviously, is to engage them and to support them around electricity master planning, cost of supply studies, and then obviously through the PPF, look at how do we get them to the market if they want to buy energy through whatever mechanism they feel appropriate as local government. Of course, part of our program also includes things like our EV strategy, and there is a new EV strategy for province. We are working quite closely with the likes of the city of Cape Town and some of the other big fleet owners in the province. And the idea would be that we start to look at the most commonly used routes, start looking at the charging station infrastructure that's required on those routes. And can we take a position then, both as local government, provincial government, and the private sector around the uptake of EV in the province? We've started to make moves in government motor transport in the mobility department. We've got 65 hybrid vehicles that we've now started to use. And the idea would be that we would move from the hybrid system to the new EV vehicles as well. Chair, this slide just really is a snippet of the dashboard that's available. So the dashboard is a publicly accessed dashboard. The map is actually very much the key. So if you were sitting in Essequa, you could click on that Essequa name. It'll pop out particularly what major projects, what large projects are taking place in your municipality. It'll tell you what solar PV projects are happening in your project, in your municipality, you'd be able to see how much small-scale embedded generation is in your municipality, so how many residents have put solar up into on their roofs, etc. We'll give an indication also of which projects, Western Cape projects, actually affect you directly. So if it was load shedding packs, if it was the generators that we made available for municipalities during load shedding, you'd be able to access those. It also is a key to indicate the readiness of municipalities around things like wheeling as well as SSEG. So it's a very quick view of what energy projects and initiatives are taking place in and around your space. We've not included the national projects in this because the national projects, although they physically might sit in a municipality, those are not for that municipality, those are for the national grid. So what we've really tried to focus on is the projects that are going to contribute to the provincial energy mix, as well as to the local energy mix in a particular municipality. So if you look at, if you were to click on Swartland, for instance, where you'll see that Darling Utility features there, and that's because Darling Utility actually supplies Swartland with renewable energy. So the dashboard, like I say, available to the public, they can access it, and they'll be able to see a number of these things. I have to also say upfront, it is a work in progress. As we keep adapting, changing, getting more data, we keep updating the dashboard with the more relevant information. Chair, this is just a view of the readiness of municipalities, specifically when it comes to small-scale embedded generation and wheeling. And you will see from the picture in the Western Cape, close to 95% of our municipalities are in fact quite adept and ready to either wheel for customers or look at how to implement small-scale embedded generation and how to deal with it in their tariffs. There are one or two that we still need to work with, and this is a sort of continuous process that we will undergo. But I must say, in terms of our province, and we compare ourselves to some of the other provinces, I think our municipalities are well equipped in terms of what's going to happen next. So just some of the highlights of the program. I mean, for us, certainly it's the Stellenbosch tender that was advertised. Our position on gas to power, which I think was in the making for a while, but we've managed to put that, take that through to cabinet. Our project preparation facility has certainly been a massive help to municipalities and been able to give them lots of guidance and direction in terms of the types of agreements and the types of arrangements that they can get into should they go to the market. I think our ability to be able to attract the funding, such as UK Pact, I think that was significant. It's also, I think, with the shift in the Trump administration, it's also made us understand very clearly that we need to look at a diverse mix of donors. And so we can sort of manage our risk and spread our risk across our programs. I think the opportunities, we find that there is significant amount of donor funding available, but of course the projects have to be viable and the projects have to be ready to go. But there's lots of interest from both local and international funders to be able to get involved. Khayelitsha is a very good example of it as well. We've had private donors coming to Khayelitsha that were very happy to pay for a dedicated line to Khayelitsha Hospital, so that should there be load shedding, that the hospital itself will not be affected by any load shedding. So we've engaged Eskom, both ourselves and the Department of Health and Wellness, around initiating that project for Khayelitsha Hospital. I think what we start to see is that tariffs are increasing, and we do have a concern around that. People are not leaving the grid because of load shedding. They're starting to move into their own systems because the cost of energy is just becoming unaffordable. In the last 10 years, the tariff has increased by nearly 500%. And it is becoming a bit of a luxury for people to actually have access to affordable energy. So a big drive in our program is to look at how do we look at models and energy options that are more affordable. Some of the key events that are going to be taking place in the near future is we're going to have a solar and storage live, which is really a exhibition that takes place for vendors both locally and nationally on the solar and the storage side of things. And the storage really referring to batteries, and obviously the solar exhibitors will be there. So that will be one of the things taking place in the next few months. We've got that national technical training workshop taking place for wheeling, where we will be one of the key facilitators. And then, Chair, just lastly, I'd like to maybe just give a sort of status update on what's happening in the Eskom system. I think we've been treated with over a year of no serious load shedding. There have been days where we've had some load shedding, but it's never extended beyond stage 2. I do want to say that the energy availability factor for Eskom this year, it has improved from last year, but it's still under what the threshold has to be. I also want to say that a few weeks ago, we had a very tight call. Eskom has got a threshold of about 13,000 megawatts that they can have for unplanned maintenance. And we had a massive temperature drop in the north of the country. The demand spiked, and we were literally about 120 megawatts away from that 13,000 megawatt mark. So in real terms, it would have meant that if we had another 120 megawatts that either went out of the system or the demand increased by an additional 120, we would have found ourselves in load shedding. Eskom has been running the OCGTs quite hard. The load factors are definitely higher than they should be. They are within their annual budget, but I must say, when I look at the spend and the sort of amount of money that is being spent on the diesel year to date, if we continue to run those units the way we are, Eskom's annual budget will actually be depleted by the end of October. So we're really glad that there's no load shedding taking place. I think the concern is at the moment is that we're keeping the lights on by running OCGT quite hard. But some of the plant, I must also say, that have come back into the system, have stayed in the system, which is a very good indication in terms of the maintenance regime. We know that Kuburg Unit 1 is still offline. We had a session with the Kuburg team 2 weeks ago, and they indicated they expect that unit should be back towards the end of August. I think from the government procurement side, we've seen significant changes in terms of the regulatory space, the policy space. We've now nationally gone out to the market for independent power transmission systems. We've also gone in a bid round for battery storage, which again is a major shift from where we were in the past. And we've seen the regulator now obviously issue those licenses to the traders. I think all in all, we start to see a significant amount of shifts in the procurement space for government as well. I think what we must note is that obviously Eskom has contested the trading licenses, and I think this is a risk. This is a risk in terms of an open market system. But I also think the concern is that citizens, we would like to see citizens have options in terms of energy, and this might limit them. And then what we have seen is the notice issued by the Department of Energy as well as by SARS that there's an extension on the tax breaks that's going to be offered and has been offered to customers that are doing installations. Chair, thank you very much. I hope I've covered everything. Thank you.
Colleagues, I would like to open up for any questions or comments towards the presentation. If I can have hands. I do not see it. Benedict, sorry, Member van Minnen.
Yes, thanks very much. I think the live energy dashboard is actually very awesome. I think it's really got a lot of potential. I just want to know what Mr. Lester was saying about Eskom and diesel. If they deplete their budget by October, I mean, what is the likely way forward at that particular point? Because I mean, at this point, we know they're running those diesel turbines second to nothing. And yeah, what's the effect of the running out of budget? Thank you.
Member Sayed.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me, firstly, as I start, let me also just thank Mr. Lester for the presentation. I think it's quite a good presentation. I think we have hope. I mean, having interacted with Mr. Lester at the national level when wearing another hat a few years ago, I think there's the Premier has appointed the right person for this particular job, really. I mean, so I want to also basically thank the Premier for that. Let me just get into just a couple of issues, and I'm not going to refer to a specific page because it speaks in general. I think there was quite a bit of focus on the municipalities, and I want to thank the team for that. What I wanted to get a sense of is that how will this particular plan support local economic development initiatives in municipalities in particular? Because I know many a times these kind of plans and these initiatives, rightfully so, tend to support your bigger industries, tend to support some of the bigger farms, and that's good because I mean they are producing jobs. But just in terms of the small and medium enterprises and the township economies, I just wanted to get a sense of that. Also, on that same line, what kind of support? Is there any provision for support for small business participation in the energy sector value chain? Just that particular aspect. And then I think perhaps, and I'll get to this even as a resolution, but could we maybe be just given an idea about the kind of procurement process that's in place? And when was a call for proposals issued? Where was the call publicized? Where is it going to be? You know, those type of just some of the details in that regard. I think that's it for now, and then I'll get into some other questions later on. Thank you, Chair.
Member Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I think Member Syed covered two of my questions. I also wanted to know, will it create local jobs and economic opportunities for the local communities? And also, who is going to be responsible for the oversight on this energy generation? And then the other one I also wanted to ask is, does the energy generation method comply with all the relevant national and local regulations and standards? Thank you, Chair.
Colleagues, I don't see any other hands. Then just a comment and a question from my side. There's quite a significant amount of effort that the province is investing and assisting municipalities to, call it, onboard them onto this particular program. I see there's 5 municipalities that they seem to be on track, and then there's 19 that's receiving assistance. What are the main constraints from the perspective of municipalities in order to participate? What are the constraints there? Yeah, if you can perhaps give us some insight there. I also noticed that on a number of instances, you seem to rely on donor funding. Particularly mentioned the example of assisting with Khayelitsha Hospital, which I think is fantastic. But to what extent is this program reliant on donor funding as opposed to investment? Donor funding is something that I would regard as part of a long-term financing strategy to be unreliable, inherently unreliable. Investment is more reliable. Yeah, those are the 2 questions from my side. I don't see any other hands. So over to you, Mr. Lester.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Just put on my camera. So, Chair, yes, so I think the first comment was around the dashboard, and thank you. We definitely want to see that dashboard expanded and possibly even use of that dashboard across the country. I think the impact of the diesel budget on Eskom, I think August is in fact the coldest month in the country, and July is the wettest month. And my view is that if Eskom comes out of August month unscathed completely, the demand is quite low at the moment. So normally the demand is between 33 and 30,000 megawatts over peak on any one day. That demand has dropped significantly to about 23,000 megawatts. So the country is not asking as much from the Eskom system as it did in the past. A lot of it has got to do with the investment that they've made on their own systems, SSEG, their own renewables, etc. And then we do have the fact that the economic growth is far lower than expected. So there isn't a demand from major industry to increase their capacity. So the pressure on the Eskom system is far less than it was a year ago. And I think it's giving Eskom the breathing space to be able to do the maintenance and the repairs. That said, any economic growth is going to put us on a very, very thin line between load shedding and not load shedding. And I think that's the reality that we're going to sit with. The fact that they will run out of diesel budget by October, I think really just means two things. One is that if they can get the plant back in service and keep it in service, they minimize the risk for the rest of the year. If they're unable to do that, I expect that Eskom will likely overspend on the diesel budget, and they'll recover that through the clawback mechanism that's in place through the regulator for particularly things like a diesel recovery. So I do think that they will probably go flat out to make sure that there is no load shedding. But of course, that doesn't come free. There is a cost with that, and it's going to be reflective in the tariff in the coming years as well. The second set of questions really spoke to the projects that we have and how does this support specifically things like the local economic development at the Munich level. And I think Hessequa and Riversdale is probably one of the best examples that we have. So at the moment, Hessequa takes 12 megawatts from Eskom at a particular cost. That particular network Eskom is unable to actually give them additional capacity on that network simply because of the network constraints and because they don't have the capital available to invest in that network. So the growth in Hessequa is then, and we've got this in a number of towns and municipalities in the province. We've got the same case in Witzenberg and Ceres, where there is an opportunity to grow, but they don't have capacity because it's not available through the Eskom system. And this is because of the limitation of capital that Eskom has. What these solar plants are able to do, it's actually to be able to provide the alternative energy that they need for growth at a lower cost. So they are able to now stimulate the growth in their cities, in their towns, in their municipalities, and it will come at a far cheaper cost. But a more practical example is if you look at Hessequa, it doesn't have any key retailers in the town. But we've already seen an application, not an application, we've seen a request from Pick n Pay to establish in Riversdale. And I think a large part of that has got to do with the fact that they now see that Hessequa is going to have own energy and not subject to any load shedding or any network risks outside of their own network. So I think there are some direct benefits when that energy is actually coming via the municipality itself. Support for SMMEs, I think directly within provincial government. I mean, through the systems that we use, typically we would look at making sure that we are using local service providers in both our own projects. So retrofitting solar PV systems into provincial government buildings. But then all the ESCOs are also sitting on exactly the same sort of system where there are local ESCOs that we're using, and we do the same in health as well. What I can say is part of our program last year is that we had a focused attention to industrial hubs at municipalities. We then fitted to 12 industrial hubs across the province at those municipalities. We fitted solar PV systems so that those SMMEs could in fact continue to do business whether there was supply or not. Obviously, we looked at the industrial hubs because we couldn't really afford to do every business and so on. But I think in also more sort of realistic terms, what we are trying to do, and we've got a funnel system that we've developed in province, and it sits on our website. It's on the last page, in fact, of the presentation. You'll see that there's a link to that. And what we do with the funnel system is we look at service providers in the province, and we look at people that are potentially looking at either putting in systems or getting someone to put in their systems. And we try and connect suppliers, vendors, customers, and funders in the system, and trying to get these guys to work together. So, you know, we're using local guys to do the, obviously they have to be certified and they have to be accredited, but being able to access them. So a lot of times we get calls from businesses to say, we want to do a solar system, but we're not sure who to speak to. Are they credible? Are they reputable? We then, through the funnel system, start to direct them and give them some guidance in terms of what, who, and how they can access those. And most of these are sitting with local entities in the province that we're using. From the procurement process, I think the public procurement process that's being followed, particularly for energy by municipalities, it's one that's clearly dictated through National Treasury. What's the process that they need to follow? We don't support any limited bids, really. We don't also want to support any unsolicited discussions, and we clear that up with a lot of the vendors and the municipalities to say you need to stay away from the unsolicited discussion. You have to go through a public process because you are accessing public funds to be able to do this. But so the procurement process is as per what Treasury requires. There are inputs from Provincial Treasury. We have been asked in some of these bid spec committees to participate as provincial government, as well as to adjudicate on some of these bids for them. But I think it's more on the technical side of things. It's not really on any of the other sides, because local government, you know, the makers themselves, their own SEM processes will determine, and they will decide, you know, what sort of vendors they're looking at and what they want. But we have followed an open, transparent procurement process, particularly with the municipalities, and then, of course, the internal one for our own projects in Western Cape government. I think the next question asked, you know, who's responsible for the oversight of these, you know, these sort of generation plants that is being established. I think what we have is that the ownership is either sitting in two forms. In the case of Hesekwa, it sits with the municipality. They actually own the plant, and they've gone to the market for a maintenance and operation agreement for a period. I do want to say we don't, unless the municipality has the capacity to be able to manage generation. The City of Cape Town does. It has a fairly big energy team, but most municipalities in the Western Cape, we are not encouraging them to own the generation. We're in fact encouraging them to rather look at buying energy or buying through traders. The management of the generation then sits with the vendors, but the contract is a power purchase agreement that's in place for anywhere from 10, 15 to 20 years, where the municipality then agrees to buy energy for that period at a particular price with certain conditions in place. And obviously the energy available as and when the municipality requires that energy. And the reason we've discouraged the own generation is simply it's going to be a massive cost factor in terms of establishing resources, capacity, and systems to manage that generation. The load factor also does not justify the investment of capital. So if you take a place like Swellendam, where you've got, you know, no more than 12 megawatts for Swellendam, no energy developer is building plants with 12 megawatts. So what we'd rather do is say, if there's a development somewhere else in the province or in the country, and they are able to wheel 12 megawatts to Swellendam, it would be far cheaper for Swellendam to buy that 12 megawatts than pay the capital cost of building a plant for 12 megawatts. But that's really the approach in terms of how the generation is managed and who has oversight. Most of the cases, municipalities, and I say most of the cases, but not in all cases, the municipalities will not own the generation. They will actually buy the energy and buy the service. In terms of policy and regulatory requirements for these plants, yes, we certainly follow what is required both nationally and the whole ambit of regulatory requirements, both from an Energy Electricity Regulation Act, as well as what was promulgated in terms of licensing, what the regulator requires, and then also, of course, what the environmental requirements is for some of these projects as well. And those are if that is being done by the municipality itself. If it's being done by the private sector and the energy is being sold into the system, the private sector then has to account for being able to get a grid connection, being able to get a grid impact study done, the EIAs in place, as well as any licensing that's required. The last two questions, Chair, was you asked was what are some of the municipal constraints to being participant to the ERP? There aren't really any constraints, Chair. As an example, for the project preparation facility, all municipalities can apply online. It's an online application that's done. It's 5 drop-down screens that they complete. It has to be completed by the likes of the MM and supported by the mayor. And then we get back to them within a matter of a week in terms of whether we can support what they're asking for, whether we have the capacity. And that really kickstarts the process to get them, for us to start the feasibilities and the discussions around what energy they want, when do they want this energy, at which injection points, etc. So there isn't really any constraints. I think what we do find is that the municipal capacity is sometimes lacking. So you don't necessarily always have people that are available or that have the know-how, or you get the designs of the networks for that municipality. So we have found that some of the constraints is that the data in the municipality is not good. It hasn't been updated for a number of years. And so we have to almost start at that point by making sure that the data is actually correct first. And then, Chair, your last question was around the donor funding and investment. Yes, of course. I mean, the investment is obviously a much more palatable and better solution. I do think what we find, though, is that when the private sector comes in, then we have to, and they want to invest in infrastructure, etc. On a PPA, typically, after 20 years, and depends on how the PPA is structured, you might find that that equipment does not belong to the municipality. It's actually being funded by the private sector. But again, it's the terms and the conditions of the PPA that have to be looked at. The other thing is for generation investment, it's quite capital intensive, and most municipalities aren't able to fund that without going to the market to raise funding for that. And that is why we haven't really encouraged, generation plant that they need to build. We've rather encouraged them to look at the option of buying the energy as opposed to making the capital investment. The donor funding part, I also want to qualify that. We've used most of the donor funding part to help us with things like the studies, the feasibilities, and for things of more of a strategic nature, like our IRP and like our clean energy roadmap for the province. So we look at that for the donor funding. I think when it comes to municipalities, it's a slightly different approach in terms of the funding. There are funders that we've linked to municipalities, where municipalities have shown an interest to want to do something, and we've put them into contact with funders. And then obviously they go through the process of the assessment of whether or not that funding model works for them, but also from the funding perspective, whether or not the project is de-risked sufficiently for them to invest. Thank you, Chair.
Right, I am going to allow for a round of follow-up questions. I see Member Boyson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we have seen the list of municipalities which are taking part in this resilience program. I want to come to Beto because I'm from Beto. We all know, Chairperson, that some time ago, it's probably a couple of years now, Beto's landfill site has been rehabilitated. And some months ago, I've seen an advert from Beto around their rehabilitated landfill site. I can't remember the exact details, but it is for companies to build a resilient renewable energy plant on it. And they've actually had dates for public participation, etc. Now, my question based on that, and Bito not being on the list, is it open-ended for municipalities to partake in the program, or whether, like we can hear from the presenter, from Mr. Lester as well, that some municipalities won't be able to have the capital injection? Now, my question is, are some municipalities just raising false hopes, or are they doing this without the advice of province? Thank you.
Member Sayed?
No, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lester, for the responses. I think mine is very much linked to what the Chair also raised about investment and donation. Just wanted to get a sense as to have we got a figure as to the comparative amount between actual investment and the actual budget coming from provincial government for the plan. And then the other linked follow-up to that is also in terms of the foreign investors that are involved. I heard you've mentioned the British. Could we perhaps get a sense as to how many, who are they, in terms of some of the key players? Is it governments? Is it private companies? Is it a mix of all of that? I just wanted to get a sense of that. Thanks. That's my follow-ups for now. I've got some other questions which are not follow-up related, but I was hoping I could do that afterwards. Thank you.
Mr. Lester?
Well, thank you, Chair. So, Chair, just on the Bito issue that was raised, yes, it's a waste-to-energy project that they're looking at in that space. They were in the market a few years ago. They withdrew because there was an objection around the landfill site. They had to do some work, I think, in the municipality, which they did. They've gone back out to the market simply because I think Bito has an opportunity in the waste-to-energy. I do want to say that that RFP went to the market. We were not engaged as provincial government. We have, I think, at every PCF, we've written to every mayor and every MM in the province, indicating our willingness to assist and also the availability of particularly the project preparation facility that they can access. I do want to say it is driven by municipalities, so the municipality has to contact us to say that they want to go to the market and they would like assistance, and then we will jump in and assist them. Not everybody has taken up that option, but I must also say that the ones that have, we've worked quite well with those guys. I don't think we've turned anyone away. I think what we have done is, for instance, when we've gone through an exercise, spoken about whether it's feasible in terms of what they're trying to do. And that feasibility could potentially be the difference between us proceeding and actually stopping and saying, well, we need a different approach for that municipality. But in the case of Bito, they went to the market. We became aware of the RFP in the market, but we were not party to the RFP, so we didn't see that RFP before it went out. The next set of questions was the actual investment versus budget. I think to Member Sayed, I think we'll have to get the exact details in terms of what the investment amounts are. I can tell you that we had set aside in total for the program over the MTF period, I think it was 1.1 billion for the entire program from a provincial perspective. And that was, that was across all the projects that we have in the province. I think in total, including municipal investment, it was going to be closer to about, I think, 6 billion in total, the city plus all the other municipalities plus province. But I don't have the exact investment amount that you asked for. You asked the question around who exactly is involved in the UK PAC. They had donated, I think it was 12 million rand that they would make available to us for the RP and other projects. It is the UK government that is directly involved, and those are in fact the donors that we're looking at. When we look and we speak to the likes of GIZ, I think what we do is we try and make sure that we take our provincial treasury along. One of the things that we can't do in the program is that we can't commit to taking on any loans or funds that has got conditions attached to them. Those will have to run through provincial treasury and even in some cases national treasury before we can say yes or no to those things. But where it's simply donation, and like I say, we've tried really hard to make sure that that donation comes in the form of expertise and skills rather than actual rands and cents. We can just apply it a lot better, and we can dispatch that a lot easier. Thank you, Chair.
Right, colleagues, there was mention of some further questions. So, sorry, is the member Sayed? I'm coming to you just now. There was mention made of some further questions. I'm going to give a last round of questions in this regard. Keep in mind, I also have to keep an eye on the time. We still have another item on the agenda as well. Member Sayed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity and for the indulgence. Just getting back to you speak about in the presentation, democratized energy system. I just wanted to get a sense as to how, just in a very, very practical manner. I know we've gone into municipalities and I'm pleased to hear about the support even for a hospital, like for example, Khayelitsha Hospital. But how will this practically benefit a poor household, for example, in Beaufort West, Khayelitsha? In particular, I'm looking at the human settlements level, in terms of human settlements, some of the basics that are required for a house. The basic electricity needs. I just wanted to get a sense, is there any practical, can I just be given something in terms of practical layman's terms in that regard? Then energy affordability we've heard a lot about energy affordability. I just wanted to get a sense as to this particular plan. In what way would you say it's a plan to shield residents from rising electricity costs? Because even in your input, we're hearing about the consumer is going to be carrying quite a bit of costs in terms of Eskom in particular. Then thirdly, I'm hearing that many of the projects are sitting in the design stages or the procurement stages as well. Do we have already, for example, timelines available in terms of the delivery of some of these projects? Then many municipalities, as you have already pointed out, some are shifting quite a bit to solar forms of energy. Is there any plan, or have you, maybe before I ask if there's a plan, have you done possibly a risk analysis as to the possible negative financial implications on municipalities if they move away from other forms that they're currently using, just in terms of them being able to basically generate income? It's a long shot, but I just want to. And then finally, Member van Minden asked earlier about the gas issue and the gas to power strategy. I just wanted to know, how would we maintain this in line with the province's commitment to decarbonization? Thank you.
Mr. Lester, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair. So, Chair, on the sort of democratized energy, and we talk about the practical implementation, I think we've engaged specifically with the Department of Infrastructure. And when you look particularly at things like housing and so on. Those are just standards that we need to start looking at implementing and changing. So typically that any house that is built, particularly by a province or a local government, should start off with the energy efficiency components in it. It should speak to things like energy efficiency products that are being used. So typically, you know, if you look at a household, a sort of a low LSM household that you're building, what would be the sort of demand that they would have, and could you cover that with things like a solar geyser? Could you cover that particularly with solar panels that is able to cater for most of what that energy requirement is? So it's really about starting to change some of the practices that we have in the province to be able to cater for these. And I think the way we are looking at doing that is to say these are some of the policy requirements that need to change in terms of things like infrastructure and building, etc. And I think that's some of the practical ways that you can actually make energy more accessible for people and more affordable as well, because they'll be generating their own. I think on the energy affordability question per se, I think because of the increases almost always reaching fairly close to double-digit figures, what we do find, for instance, is that solar, non-dispatchable solar, sorry, so let me also qualify that, non-dispatchable solar, you could buy at close to, I mean, the cheapest we've seen is 42 cents a kilowatt hour. At the moment, if you buy Eskom energy, it's going to cost you over 3 Rand, although it is dispatchable. But if you take the 42 cents and you add the battery in, then you're at 2.80 Rand versus over 3 Rand. And that 2.80 Rand is an investment that you're making. So you effectively, once you put in the panel and the battery, etc., you continue to pay 2.80 Rand as long as the sun's shining and you're able to store that energy in your battery. The 3 Rand that you're paying Eskom or a municipality, etc., is going to continue to escalate. And so, you know, the energy affordability is about how do we actually, you know, get this to a point where people actually can afford to buy energy, whether it's at scale or whether it's in their home, etc. But if you have the same kind of setup or system being set up at a much higher level, being scaled, then you can see the benefits of that energy coming down to that households as well. So it doesn't require every household to have SSEG. If you're buying cheap renewable energy from a solar farm and there's a battery attached to that in the province or in a municipality, you should see the same benefits at scale. Chair, the procurement stage for most municipalities, they are in the market. I must say that I don't have implementation dates, and the reason for that simply is, if I look at the case of Saldanha, for instance, they extended their RFP, the closing date, to the end of this month. It was supposed to be earlier in the year in June, but they've extended that for another few months. And I must say we're not too concerned about that, and I'll say this because we would rather want them to get quality submissions being put forward than actually having to actually cancel the bid and go back, cancel the RFP and go back out to the market again. In the case of Stellenbosch, they've concluded, I think they're just about to go through the process of appointing a vendor. In the case of Lesakwa, the project's already up and running, and they basically going through execution at the moment in Lesakwa. For the other projects, the member's correct. I mean, we are helping them to get to the market. So the likes of George, the likes of Prince Albert, those ones we're still taking to the market. And we're also helping the likes of Paul get to the market as well. So we don't have implementation dates. And I think a lot of that is dependent on the response that they get from the market and what sort of options they choose. I can tell you typically what the timelines are for a solar farm, depending on the scale, but on average, it's far better than it was 5 years ago. Let me also say that it used to take us about 18 months to build. It can now be done between 8 and 12 months. And solar is the easiest and the cheapest out of the lot, simply because the technology is more available and far more mature. Obviously, wind is slightly different. The components are coming in at scale, and they're quite expensive to bring those things in. So wind farms take slightly longer than what solar farms do. A risk analysis of the impact on the municipal revenue when people move to solar. This exercise was in fact done by the City of Cape Town. It was shared at the Energy Council and shared more broadly with municipalities as well. And it really indicated that if municipalities do absolutely nothing, they will lose that revenue completely when people move off the grid. And the discussion was really around how do we look at alternative revenue options for municipalities. There's also a national working group looking at this within NECOM, the revenue impact of SSEG on municipalities. But one of the things I can say, Chair, is that we see wheeling as an opportunity for municipalities to be able to generate revenue. So when people are wanting to put energy onto a municipal network, they are able to actually charge those businesses that want to move energy across their network. It's the same model that Eskom is applying. What we do see, which I think is high risk, is that to buffer against this potential revenue loss, municipalities and Eskom are adjusting the fixed network charge. And it's almost coming across as a penalty for solar. You put on solar, we're going to charge you a higher fixed network charge. And I think that's a big risk that we need to be aware of. But yes, we certainly are aware that there's going to be a revenue impact for municipalities. It's going to be very difficult to stop people from abandoning the grid when the cost starts climbing. I think what you want to do is you want to get a balance between they must take some services from you and they must be able to then supply themselves in other periods. And it is going to come down to, again, the sort of market system that we have when people can buy cheapest energy at any time. And it could be that the municipality or even an Eskom offers cheap energy at a particular time of the day, and that's when they'll see a huge demand for the energy. And this is really just that the cost of peak energy is extremely expensive. I said it's just over 3 Rand a kilowatt hour, that's off peak. If you were to buy energy over peak, that's between 5 and 7 in the morning, 5 and 7 at night, you're going to be paying close to 7 Rand a kilowatt hour. And so I think those are what people and municipalities are all looking at, is how do they buffer against that peak cost and keep the customer as well. But there is an exercise that has been done by the City of Cape Town. It has been shared with municipalities as well. And then the last question around, how does gas impact our approach in terms of a decarbonized economy? I think two things in the province. We see gas as a transient opportunity, a transient fuel, not a permanent solution. I must say in the national IRP, it is slightly different in that they do see it as a rampable energy available and part of the IRP going forward. So gas, again, I must say the technology has shifted significantly, but you're not getting a zero emission from gas. You do have emissions from gas. Yes, it's far less than diesel, but you still have emissions. So again, I think you'd be able to use it as a peaking plant only over particular periods. If you try to run it as base load, I think you're going to have extremely high cost and you're going to find yourself with emissions that you don't really want to deal with. So it should be seen as a peaking plant, replacing diesel, cheaper than diesel, but certainly far less carbonized than diesel. Thank you, Chair.
Colleagues, we are at a stage when we need to start wrapping up this particular part of the agenda. I would like to thank Mr. Lester, the Premier, and the team here for the presentation. I think it was very, very informative. And I would like to excuse you so that the committee can look at its resolutions and recommendations in this regard. So thank you very much for your presentation. A late Friday afternoon. You really did it justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Colleagues, just in terms of the presentation that we've heard, I thought it was very informative. Are there any resolutions or recommendations from the committee in this regard? Any suggestions? Member Sayed. And then Member Van Minen.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
My sound was off. No, thank you. No, and thank you to you, Chair, for really giving us opportunities to engage. Just wanted to know if we could perhaps be provided with supporting documents or something. I mean, you know, in writing for some of the information that we asked, but they didn't have it on hand. I'm not sure whether Wasima can maybe just get a sense as to what were some of those things that we have asked for. I know there were a few specifics, for example, the foreign investors, the amounts, all of those things. If we could just get some of those things in writing, perhaps. And then also, exact detail of each of the departments in the province that are implementing this particular plan. If they can just give us look, and then where, you know, I mean, in terms of the various budget allocations per department for this. So just a little bit more of the specifics. Thank you.
Okay, Member Van Minen.
Mine's a bit more mischievous. I'd really like us to find a reason to go and visit a wind farm. I know it's just personal interest, but when you're thinking about looking at oversight visits, just remember wind farm could be interesting. Thanks.
Okay, there's a tourism, environmental tourism request. Colleagues, I think it will really be interesting to actually see practically how these things work and what it looks like, what the type of challenges are. I can imagine it's hugely different between a solar farm, waste management type of approach like Beto, and a wind farm as well. There was reference made to it during the presentation. Member Boyson.
Chairperson, I support Member Van Minen's proposal. It would definitely give us a sense on what is happening. But then, Chairperson, my own suggestion, I know there's a lot of changes happening in the space of energy, and I don't want us as a committee to be left behind. And I know it is not practical for energy resilience to become a standing item, but can we find a way, maybe on a quarterly basis, you know, that we do get these updates? Thank you.
Colleagues, so what we have is a request for information. Member said the way I followed the presentation, it was what you said, but we are looking at the cost in terms, or the difference, the exact figures of in terms of funding between donors and investment. We are looking for the breakdown of what the departments, the various departments are, to what extent they are participating in this program. You also had a reference made to who the potential investors and donors are. There was a breakdown there, and I think there was also a question, I can't remember who it was, that in terms of timelines, what the timelines in the various projects are. I think it was particularly related to municipalities, to have a breakdown of that as well. Then there's a proposal for an oversight visit to look at some of these projects. And then there's also a proposal that we have a quarterly report or a quarterly update in terms of the energy resilience plan. Is that correctly reflected, colleagues? Silence is consent.
Chair, yes, Chair, it is correctly reflected. Thank you.
Okay,
I agree with Emery. I agree with Member Boyson.
Colleagues, then what I suggest then is that we move to the next item on the agenda, the seeds bill that we've extensively discussed on this committee already. Wasima did send some documentation for you to peruse, to further familiarize yourselves what emanated from the previous meetings. I am going to assume that it is read, and I'm going to give an opportunity for members to give comment in terms of where we are. I'm going to ask the question, are there any further matters that anyone wants to raise? I do think we need to start taking this matter to a particular point. Member van Minnen.
Thanks very much. Look, I think, to be honest, this matter has now been circulating for a while. The earliest documentation I, in fact, have seen referring to an extension of the seats was dated 2012, which is a very long time ago. Every year, the population of the Western Cape increases. The Cape Town City Council, for example, has increased since its inception in 2000 from 100 to, I think, if you include the PR seats, I think it's close to 135 now, and will probably increase by at least another ward in the next year, which I think reflects certainly a lot of growth in the metro. I think we need to move forward with this. We know that the last committee in the previous administration had already, I think, referred it up, but it didn't go through before the election, so it's come back to us. But I really would motivate strongly that we now make a decision and move forward with it.
Colleagues, there's a proposal on the table. Can I have a seconder for the proposal? Maybe before we get to the seconder, my understanding of the process, and I just want to confirm, we are currently informally discussing it. The next step would be in a subsequent meeting to formally consider the motion to adopt the motion of desirability, and then we will conclude the process by going through the proposal clause by clause. I just want to confirm that my understanding is correct. Perhaps Wasima, you can assist.
Person, you're on track.
Can't hear Wasima. I think you're also a bit quiet. Well, I could say subdued your system there.
Person, you're on track. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So the committee just like Chairperson mentioned, if there will be informal consideration, members must deliberate that this bill was revived in August 2024, and at that revival, it was at the stage of what the previous committee did the bill. So in that, I'll just read the ATC. That the revival of the bill, it revived from the stage it reached during the 6th Parliament. So the bill was sent to all members. Members must discuss whether they accept the bill in its form or if there's any amendments. We go through it and we can move to the motion of desirability. Chairperson, so any other further guidance?
Okay, colleagues, I struggled slightly with the sound there, but essentially the proposal then in front of us is that we will move to the formal consideration of the bill at our next committee meeting. Am I correct, Member van Minnen? Is that your proposal?
Well, I think it's something that's, quite honestly, I think time is ticking. We need to do it as soon as possible. So, I mean, yes, I think we need to formally put it on the table, decide on the number of seats, and then refer it to the House, because I don't think there's anything to be gained by endlessly debating it in this committee when I think it should be referred to the House with the proposal of a size increase, so that the House can then debate it formally and or adopt it or, decide what to do with it, taking it forward. But yes, I think the time is of the essence in this matter.
Colleagues, I recall also the committee agreed to an increase of 6 seats in terms of the size. And I had Member Bosman. Perhaps you can also just help us to be exactly clear how we take this forward.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, now I've just been a shadow in this process, and I was slightly involved in the previous Parliament, but I think I heard Honourable van Minnen make a different proposal, if I'm not mistaken. I think Honourable van Minnen said that the process has been thoroughly discussed, exhausted, and the process of where we are now as Parliament is for the committee to move to the next stage in the legislative process. And perhaps Ms. Kamish Ahmad can advise the committee, but in my knowledge of the rules of the WCPP is that we now need to move to a motion of desirability stage, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of where we are with the legislative process, so that the bill and the proposal, the report now moves from the committee into the full House, so that if we are going to be amending the constitution of the Western Cape, that needs to now be done so that the House can actually make that decision. Because I also just want to remind the members that even once the provincial parliament has concluded our processes on the amendment and the increase of the seat, we still also need to get certification from the Constitutional Court. And judging by the backlog of cases on the court's roll, it might take more than 2 years for that process. So perhaps from a procedural perspective, if Ms. Kamish Ahmad could just explain to the committee what the options are in terms of the legislative process that we have to follow. And then perhaps I think as a committee, my recommendation would be to support the comment made by Honourable Van Minnen, that the committee then at today's meeting move this on to the next part of the process so that we can move to finality. Thank you, Chair.
Member Sayed.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I'm very much aligned with what Member Bosman is proposing. And Member Van Minnen, I think, look, we've been seized with this for a very long time. We need to move. We may not necessarily, I think there's still going to probably be around the amount of seats, there's that, but I think let's just get the process moving, because the processes even outside of our committee and outside the legislature is going to be quite long as well with the Concord. So I think let's just move. Let's just hear from Wasima, just in terms of at the technical level where we move from now. But let's get the ball rolling. I don't think we're going to have more processes in terms of public hearings and all of those things. I think let's move as fast as possible. Thank you.
Wasima, is it possible? I just want to be absolutely clear that technically the correct decision is taken. I think there's consensus that we move ahead. This has been dragging out long enough. So if I can just ask you, I just want to get the formulation right. If you can assist us in terms of the formulation of the decision.
Okay. So, Chief, can you hear me? Can the members hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can.
Chairperson, so as I mentioned, this bill was revived as a B bill. If members, I'm going to take the members back just so they can get an understanding. So the previous committee in the 6th Parliament dealt with a regional bill where they had the amendments on and the amendments was made. So this bill has been revived from the stage it reached during the 6th Parliament. So what happened was the amendments that was accepted by that committee is the bill that is in front of the committee right now. So if you look, the previous bill was, if you look at clause 1, it said so as to provide differently. That word differently was inserted. But this bill was referred to the committee at the stage of where the bill was previously. So the bill that has been put in front of the committee must decide whether they have any amendments to the current bill that's in front of them right now. So are they in agreement with the bill that's standing that they can see? I don't know if you can see it on the screen. And if so, the committee can then move to the motion of desirability, and that stage will be where the chairperson will take the committee through each clause, and if there's no clause, we agree to it. You agree to the short title, the long title, and also put the bill. And if there's any objections, you basically overall you agree on the totality of the bill. The committee then adopts a report to say they basically accepting the bill as is and referring it to the House. So if you see in under composition 13, the provincial parliament consists of 42, and the change here is 48 elected members. So if there's any amendments to the bill that is in its current form, members can discuss it now.
Okay. Right, colleagues, then I'm going to see Mr. Vermeulen and Mr. Leroux, and then we're going to proceed. Mr. Vermeulen.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Firstly, apologies for sounding maybe a bit weird. I'm a bit under the weather. I just want to say that as far as I'm concerned, Chairperson, and apologies, the dogs are barking. The dogs are barking now. I'm on sick leave today. But Chairperson, as far as I'm concerned, there's procedurally no reason why the committee cannot proceed to adopting the motion of desirability today. The committee can do that and move to the formal stage and then formally consider all the clauses. I think Wasima has prepared for this, what that process will be. And we don't know, maybe the committee will adopt the bill as it is, or the committee may decide that they want to change the number of 48 to something else. We don't know. But what I'm saying, Chairperson, and I'm probably talking too much, there's procedurally no reason why the committee may not proceed with moving forward today and concluding and reporting on this bill. Thank you, Chairperson.
Colleagues, okay, Mr. Leroux, and then we're going to proceed. I think we're starting to be clear now. Mr. Leroux.
Chair, I have one concern, which I think it's important to share with the committee. I understand that we are at the point of discussing or making a decision on the number of seats, and of course that's for the committee to decide what is the appropriate number of seats. I'm just thinking ahead a bit because I have a question, and it's a very, very simple question. It's only 2 words, and the question is why 48 or why 54, why 60 or whatever the committee's decision may be. I asked that question because it won't necessarily come up in court, but it may, especially if there is a contestation or there's an amicus curiae or there's somebody that says, no, this amendment by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, we don't support it, we don't think we need more members or whatever. I think in the public involvement, there was a number of members of the public that expressed the view that there's enough public office bearers. So we don't know whether there may be a challenge to the decision. And at this point in time, as the legal advisor of this committee, or in this committee, if the Concord asked me that question, why 48, I would have great difficulty answering that question. In terms of what was the criteria the committee applied, why not 44? Was it a budgeting issue? If it was a budgeting issue, how was that sort of, from a rationality perspective, how was that argument made that it should be 48? And I do think that is an important issue that we should deal with. Procedurally, I don't know quite how that would work, but there would probably be a report by the committee that says our decision is the number should be X, and the reasons why we came to that decision is the following. And of course, rationality is a legal requirement. On rationality, the court is not likely to the question is not whether the court agrees with the committee's decision or the House decision. All the court wants to see is that the decision was rational, that it wasn't arbitrary, that it was based on reasons and what those reasons were. That is a concern I have, that we are having a conversation on making a decision on the number. And I just want to flag that it's really important that there must be some reasoning as to why a particular number is selected. I've communicated this to the committee in my previous presentation, that it is important that the committee applies its mind to how this particular number is derived. Thank you, Chairperson.
Colleagues, on the question raised by Mr. Leroux, it was certainly my impression that the reasons for the increase and the way we got to the increase of 6 seats was in fact thoroughly debated. And I see Member for Minon's hand is up. You can maybe add to what I'm saying. But rationally speaking, reference was made to essentially the doubling of the population of the Western Cape in terms of certainly since the 1994 when this was when this number of 42 was decided on. Secondly, given the increased workload that the increase in population created, the load that is on the current undersized legislature or legislative body, that in itself is a workload that is becoming to the disadvantage of residents as well. If we can't efficiently operate, and I'm just outlining some of the reasoning that we heard in the past, and at the same time it's a fairly modest increase if you compare it to the IEC formula that the Western Cape would have been entitled to if there wasn't a provincial constitution in place. So I think there were in fact quite a number of rational reasons raised. I don't want to re-debate it. What we can do is just formulate it for the sake of, if there is a challenge, what those reasons would be. But I mentioned a couple of them, and I was under the impression we also debated that, and it was debated since 2012. So I think we should perhaps just summarize a couple of those reasons. I see Member Boyson, Member van Minen, Member Bosman, and then Member Sayed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I don't know whether this would help. In the budget meeting this morning, even the FFC indicated that the Western Province is the fastest growing province in the country if this formula is based on numbers. But then, Chairperson, all I wanted to say as well is that we as this committee, we're raising this as an indication that we do have the political will to proceed with this. And the numbers and what is required, I think the learned people can then deal with that. We just want to indicate our political will that we are on board regarding this. Thank you, Chair.
Member van Minen.
Thanks very much. Maybe I can just help the committee out a bit here. Bear in mind that in the last administration, what there was a debate about was whether to use the formula that is used by the IEC, which is essentially a member per every 100,000 of the ordinary place of 100,000 of the population whose ordinary place of residence is within the province. That was the one option. The other option was to substitute a number, because remember the Western Cape has its own constitution, so it has that right. It was decided, I think the chair was Member Bartman, it was decided, she certainly made the recommendation, it was decided by the then committee that they were going to substitute a number rather than the formula, which also obviously has precedence in the original constitution as it went through to the Constitutional Court originally. And then, I mean, the number being 48, or an increase of 6, is very much based on the exhaustive documentation that has been discussed last term and this term, particularly regarding the finances and the need to balance financial prudence with added representation. Ultimately, it was decided that 6 would be the optimum in order to do that, because we are operating in a constrained financial situation. And so obviously to willy-nilly increase it to, I think the formula probably takes us to 72, would be considered not rational. So that is why, number one, they decided to settle on a number. And number two, why we've settled on the number of 48 versus any other number. Thanks.
Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Sorry for the delay. I was just trying to find my mouse on the second screen. I'm covered by Honourable Van Minen. Thank you.
Member Sayed.
No, Chair. Thank you, Chair. While I am covered by Member Van Minen, I was always obviously raising the fact that, I mean, I understand, look, I know the issue around going with the IEC formula. I mean, yes, over 70 seats is, while it's technically correct in terms of where other provinces are also going, implementing IEC formulas, I guess probably in the sense of prudence, it would not be. I mean, it would just not also send a proper signal out there. But I was always arguing, and I think on this one, where we need some discussion, because obviously we need this to be passed, is just around, because my understanding is that this is going to be implemented and in the next term, kind of after the elections, 2029. And I'm sure, look, budgetary projections are all out there and this and that, but it's a long way to tell. I'm not sure whether 6 is sufficient enough. And I know that was the one of the issues that held us back last term as well. And so I just feel maybe we needed a little bit of more rationale as to why exactly 6. Why not, if we're going to be prudent, why not 2, why not 3, or why not 10? Why not round it off to 50 or 51? Or, you know, I'm just, I mean, I think that's where my issue will still be at. Thank you.
Is my understanding correct then, if you look at the process to be followed now, that everyone is in favor of the motion to, well, in favor of a motion of desirability? Let's deal with this piece by piece. I think then when we get to the amendments of the bill, Member Sayed, then I would imagine that's where the debate on whether it's 42 or 48 or whatever the case may be, that's where the debate is situated.
Exactly. Yes, I'm with everybody on the will and the desirability for us to go ahead. Yeah.
So then it sounds like it's procedurally correct then to ask somebody to put a motion of desirability on the table for the committee. Member Van Minen.
I'm very happy, as it is almost 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, to bring a motion of desirability and to place it before the committee. I so move.
Colleagues, can I have a seconder for the motion of desirability? I see Member Stevens' hand.
I second that, Chair.
Okay. I see Mr. Van Vermeulen's hand going up, so I want to check whether there's a flaw in our process that's been spotted. So, Mr. Van Vermeulen.
Chair, no, I wouldn't dare to use the word flaw, but if I can ask, Chair, maybe Wasima can just flight the motion of desirability that there's a couple of more words that we usually include as well, just for making it more perfect, if it's okay. See, Mikey. Sorry, Ms. Kamish Ahmad, thank you.
Ms. Kamish Ahmad.
I'm here, Chair.
There we have a look.
So this is the not sure if
Okay, that's the bill itself.
Yeah.
Right, so then I'm formally, there's been a motion proposed. There was a seconder. I do not see anyone against the motion of desirability of that. So colleagues, so the motion of desirability has then been adopted. Then I would like to ask then colleagues, should we then do the next step in the process in a follow-up meeting in terms of debating the number of seats, or should we do it now, considering that we have 6 minutes left in our allocated time slot? Can I have a proposal of a way forward? Member van Minnen? Member
All
van
my
Minnen?
best moves. I was muted. I was going to say that I really propose we move forward with this and debate it now, because we've been going around in circles in this. And I mean, we also have very limited slots before we have to get to the annual report. So I would propose very much that we discuss it now.
Now, I also have a concern of us breaking up the process. So, colleagues, let's proceed then to debate it now. If we can have the bill flighted again. And now we're at the stage of looking at amendments of the bill, the next step. So, Wasima, if you can, Mrs. Kamish Ahmad, if we can just flight the bill again.
Okay. 5 seconds.
All right, so what we have in front of us is the bill to amend the Constitution of the Western Cape 1997 as to provide differently for the number of members of the Provincial Parliament and to provide for matters connected therewith. So colleagues, there we have it's essentially one clause. If I can go to clause 1, any proposed amendments from the committee? Member van Minnen?
I propose that the committee accept clause 1 as it is, well, yes, as it is amended in front of us without further amendments, if that's clear.
That's clear. Member Sayed? Member Sayed?
He's probably muted, Chair.
Okay, then I'm going to go to Member Boyson.
I support Member van Minnen, Chairperson.
Going to give Member Sayed another chance. You were muted previously. Member Sayed?
Chair, thank you very much. Chair, can I just be given, obviously this requires a party mandate. I'm just on the line with the leadership currently. If I could just be given 1 or 2 minutes, just give me that, if it's fine with you, because obviously this will require the ANC's vote in the House eventually, if that's fine.
Member Sayed, let's give it 3 minutes. Would that be
3
enough?
minutes maximum, that's fine. Thank you,
Okay.
Chair.
Sure. Colleagues, we will give a 3-minute opportunity. Use the opportunity to stretch your legs, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you very much. Look, again, I mean, we agree with the principle in terms of the amount. For now, I think, look, we'll go with the majority view, but bearing in mind that obviously this must still come to the House. So we'll still have to consult further before it goes to the House in terms of whether we're going to go with the 48. But I think for now, let it for the sake of progress, let it go through in terms of the committee process at least. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as agreement in the committee, but reserving your rights for the debate in the House, that you have to go to your caucus.
Yes.
So we can take it as agreement in the committee, but cognizant of the fact that a caucus can still disagree and debate the matter in the House.
Most certainly.
That's how I'm taking it.
Most certainly, Chair. Thank
Member
you.
Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, as permanent member of this committee, also indicate my support to the proposal by Member van Minnen. Thank you very much.
Okay, so colleagues, then for the section 2, any proposed amendments? Gone. Then, colleagues, there's for some reason a lot of calls coming in on my phone. Let me just, very poor timing.
It's the Constitutional Court, Chairperson.
Yeah, they're very worried. It's
If only they were that fast.
and now you are making remarks that's making me get distracted even more. Right, then let me then go to the next step of the next step would be to adopt the committee report indicating the proposed amendments. Do we have a draft committee report? Mr. Vermeulen?
Chairperson, I'm so sorry, man. I think I must be very irritating today, but this has now happened so fast. I just want to make sure, Chairperson, if you don't mind, that you also put the short title. You can all do it all in one because it's a short bill. The short title, the long title, and the B bill as a whole, that the committee adopts it and then do the report. That's usually the way we do it.
I'm happy to do so, Mr. Vermeulen, but then it needs to be in front of me. It certainly was in the previous bill there, and I have to say that I'm getting very fragmented information at the moment in terms of the feedback. So, colleagues, then we're going to redo the process now. Please, can we have it correctly reflected here? And I'm going to go through it now step by step. So, colleagues, now, Mr. Vermeulen, there was from what I recall, there is a ATC reference number that needs to be in here somewhere as well.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
no, I can't.
Yeah, look, I managed to.
There is Chairperson, there is an ATC.
Member Sayed, can you please put yourself on mute?
As a committee report. Ne? So I've said, look, we reserve, but we can still amend.
There we go. Colleagues, okay. So, Member van Minnen, I see your hand.
I think it might actually be a legacy hand, but are you looking for someone to propose the bill?
Okay, now I'm going to do it, and Mr. Vermeulen, I'm going to pause at every step to ensure that it's done correctly. So what we have is the bill to amend the Constitution of the Western Cape 1997 so as to provide differently for the number of members of the Provincial Parliament and to provide for matters connected therewith. Right? We've done the exercise of going through the amendments. Right? I can't see how that would be incorrect. So colleagues, so then I'm putting the bill, the bill in front of us as amended or as discussed and not amended at the end of the day, but I'm putting it in front of you. Can I have a proposer for the bill? I see Member van Minnen.
Thank you. I propose the bill as it is in front of us. I so move.
Member Johnson.
I second the proposal made by Member van Minnen.
Okay, thank you very much. And I cannot see how an ATC number changes what we're doing. Then colleagues, then I'm going to ask for the, let me just ask the question, are there any abstentions? Are there any votes against? I do not see any hands. Then I'm going to ask for the committee report to formally consider the motion to adopt the motion of, or the committee report indicating any proposed amendments, which there were not any of. If I can ask that to be flighted for adoption. So colleagues, my apologies, I'm coming down with a bit of a flu as well. Sorry if I'm grumpy sounding. Report, okay, I'm going to read through it. Report of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters. The report of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters on the Constitution of the Western Cape Amendment Bill, determination of numbers of members, B6B 2023, dated, it will be today, the 22nd of August 2025. The Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters, having considered the subject of the Constitution of the Western Cape Amendment Bill, determination of numbers of members, B6B 2025, referred to it in accordance with Standing Rule 173, reports the bill, supports the bill, I would imagine. Mr. Van Meulen?
Chairperson, if I can just, once again, just mention, through you, I think it must say what we usually say, Wasima. You must say there, reports the bill without amendment, because we are reporting the bill the way it was referred in ATC to us, and then it will be correct. Thank you, Chair.
That didn't make sense there. So colleagues, I'm going to read it again. Report of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters. The report of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters on the Constitution of the Western Cape Amendment Bill, determination of number of members, B6B 2025, dated 22 August 2025. The Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters, having considered the subject of the Constitution of the Western Cape Amendment Bill, determination of number of members, B6B 2023, referred to it in accordance with Standing Rule 173, reports the bill without amendments. Colleagues, can I have a proposer? Member van Minnen.
Sorry, one question. Is it reports or supports the bill without amendments?
It should be supports.
Yeah, let's just make sure we don't fall at the last hurdle. If it says supports, then I propose it.
Mr. Van Meulen, I actually raised the same point, so let's ask that question again.
Chairperson, sorry. May I speak, sir?
You may speak.
Chairperson, this is a standard report. You did ask the question, and it's a very fair question. But since we are reporting to the House, the committee is just saying in the end that we are reporting the bill to you, House, without amendments. So here is the bill that you referred to us, Bill 6B. We're reporting it without amendments, so you're getting it back as is, because no amendments were made by the committee. So it is correct the way it is. But if the committee wants to do it differently, there's also nothing wrong with that. But this is standard. So it's not wrong the way it is, Chairperson.
Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm not sure now whether Member van Minen proposed the wording of support or report, but either way, I wanted to second the proposal made by Member van Minen. Thank you.
I'm going to put the report as read by myself that is in front of us. I'm going to put it again to the committee. Can I have a proposer? Member van Minen?
Okay, I've had an explanation. I support the bill and I propose it.
Member Johnson, do you second?
I second, Chair. Thank you.
Are there anyone in opposition to the, or sorry, abstaining from the committee report? Are there any votes against? It is a true reflection. So the report passes. Then, Mrs. Kachmat, if you can just, in terms of the process forward, my understanding is it now goes to the House.
Yes, Chairperson, the report will be sent for APC and will be tabled at the next cycle on the House order paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then, colleagues, then there's another two matters that we have to deal with. That's some committee minutes that we need to deal with, and the draft committee program. I see Member Sayed's hand.
Chair, thank you very much, and thank you. I just wanted to know from Ms. Kamish Ahmed, which sitting will this bill be tabled in? Are we looking at the next sitting this coming Thursday? Thanks.
Thank you. We will discuss the matter with plenary and see if they can place it on the order paper. That I can't determine, Chairperson, but the chief of is here. If he can some guidance.
It looks like Member Bosman might have might be directly able to assist. Member Bosman, and then I'm going to Member Johnson. Member Bosman.
Thanks, Chairperson. Just in response to Member Syed's question, I highly doubt that it will appear on the order paper for Thursday sitting, because the programming authority is sitting on Tuesday, and there will not be enough time for plenary services between today and Tuesday morning to finalize all of the documentation for presentation to the programming authority. So the short answer is I don't think it will happen. My suspicion is that it might be a sitting after that, because there are quite a few other checks and balances that has to happen before the report is able to go and be finalized for plenary support to submit it to the programming authority. Thanks, Chairperson.
Colleagues, in that case, I believe we can go to the consideration and adoptions of the draft committee meeting minutes of 6 August 2025. So if you can just scroll through it, I'm assuming that everyone has read it. Colleagues, can I ask for a proposer of the minutes? There are no issues. Member van Minen?
Alweer Eckert, I'll propose.
Well, you have it's part of the handover, so no problem. A second, I have a seconder. It was her work, so no problem. Member Stevens?
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, I see no other hands, so the minutes are passed. And then if we can go to the consideration and adoption of the draft committee meeting minutes of 6 August. Sorry, the consideration and adoption of the draft committee program. If we can table that as well for our consideration. Colleagues, are there any comments on the draft committee program? I see Member Van Minen's hand.
That really is a vintage hand. I think it might be better if someone else proposes this and then I can second it, if I can just do it backwards.
Can I ask that we have another seconder by way of variation?
Chairperson, oh, sorry. I was going to say we'll leave it to the old hands. We are new kids on the block. We were not part of that meeting.
Member Stevens was, her hand was up. Okay, just hang on for a second. This is Kamish Ahmad.
Chairperson, I just want to bring to the attention of the committee that this is proposed agenda items for the next upcoming meetings. And this document was distributed to all members. So all members, any member can adopt the program to say that they're in agreement, or if they want to make any amendment, they can do so now.
Yeah, that's so. Member Bosman.
Chairperson, as you know, I'm not a member of this committee, so this has nothing to do with me. But maybe what I'd like to suggest to the committee is that you consider not adopting this now, and you give the chairperson and the new members an opportunity to peruse the document and perhaps also to think about some other activities. We are about to enter the fourth quarter of the parliamentary program, so it would be useful if the committee secretariat could send the programming authority a comprehensive list of what the committee would like to cover so that we can make those slots available. So perhaps make sure that everybody sort of looks through it and makes all their suggestions, and then at your next meeting you might want to adopt it. Thanks, Chair.
Colleagues, my input would have been that we are, that I thought of subsequently to asking for a proposal. We did actually suggest a oversight here earlier in the meeting as well, and I think it might be wiser to consider this in a subsequent meeting. So I agree with Member Bosman. Would the committee be agreeable to that?
Agree from my side.
I see a thumbs up from Member Stevens. I'm very glad that joined us today. So, colleagues, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Just want to check there, are there any resolutions or actions that anyone wants to propose? There was a resolution that we hold off on the draft program, so we could record that as a resolution. We are not submitting it today. We will hold it back to another meeting for us to peruse it, and for me as a new chair to look at it. That's the one resolution. Anything else? I see no hands. That then brings us to the end of the meeting. Colleagues, we went slightly over time, but thank you very much for your indulgence. I think we actually managed to conclude at least our part of a process that's been around since 2012. I would like to thank my predecessor for the incredibly thorough job that was done with this bill. And yes, and I think it made it possible to actually bring it to this point. So thank you very much, and have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.